invasive plastic surgery questions, hinting at eating disorders, downplaying abuse. Barbara Walters is one of the most iconic broadcast journalists of all time, but even she's had some really bad interviews. Keep watching for her most regrettable moments. When Barbara Walters interviewed pop star Ricky Martin in 2000, it was at a time when rumors about his sexuality were swirling around. When she asked him about those rumors, he responded, "I think that sexuality is something that each individual should deal with in their own way, and that's all I have to say about that." But Walters wasn't quite satisfied as she pressed on.
You could say, as many artists have, "Yes, I am gay," or you could say, "No, I'm not."
A visibly uncomfortable Martin ended the inquisition by insisting that he wasn't willing to offer an answer. He did eventually come out publicly in 2010, and in a 2021 interview with People magazine, he described that exchange with Walters as a deeply distressing experience. As he put it, "When she dropped the question, I felt violated because I was just not ready to come out. I was very afraid. There's a little PTSD with that." Walters also had regrets, as she told the Toronto Star in 2010, "I pushed Ricky Martin very hard to admit if he was gay or not, and the way he refused to do it made everyone decide that he was. A lot of people say that destroyed his career, and when I think back on it now, I feel it was an inappropriate question." Surely, Dolly Parton's fascinating rags-to-riches life story warranted better questions than, "Would I have called you a hillbilly?" But her 1977 interview with Barbara Walters took an even more patronizing tone when it zeroed in on Parton's appearance, as Walters asked, "Is it all you?" hinting at whether or not Parton's breasts were enhanced. Parton neither denied nor confirmed, though she did let people know that she thought there was nothing wrong with plastic surgery.
That if I hadn't have had it on my own, I'm just the kind of person that would have had me some made.
Walters doubled down, though, as she insisted, "You don't have to look like this. You're very beautiful. You don't have to wear the blonde wigs. You don't have to wear the extreme clothes, right?" Parton then set the record straight by explaining, "I just decided that I would do something that would at least get the attention. Then they would see there was parts of me to be appreciated."
I'm very real where it counts, and that's inside.
That's what we call country class at its finest. Brooke Shields was only 15 when she appeared in an infamous Calvin Klein commercial that featured her in skin-tight jeans.
You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing.
Soon after the ad aired, Barbara Walters interviewed the rising teenage star in 1981 and proceeded to ask her some cringeworthy questions like, "What are your measurements?" and "Do you have any secrets from your mother?" Walters even inquired about the actor's sexual history. Shields looked back on the interview during a 2021 appearance on Dax Shepard's Armchair Expert podcast, as she called it practically criminal, and declared that Walters' questions were not journalism. It would have been difficult to interview Monica Lewinsky in 1999 without getting into salacious territory, but Barbara Walters didn't have to also be judgmental. During coverage of Lewinsky's affair with then-President Bill Clinton, the press wasn't particularly compassionate, as she was referred to as a bimbo, stalker, and seductress, as Walters pointed out during their 2020 sit-down. After discussing how the president made false promises and broke up with Lewinsky several times, Walters asked,
Where was your self-respect? Where was your self-esteem?
Lewinsky took the question in stride and responded, "I don't have the feelings of self-worth that a woman should have."
I think that's been a center of a lot of my mistakes.
Much of the interview felt like slut-shaming, which was unfortunately the norm in terms of what Lewinsky had to deal with at the time. Barbara Walters might be a respected journalist, but there have been times when she was perhaps too focused on people's appearances. During a 1977 interview with Elizabeth Taylor and her then-husband John Warner, Warner insinuated that Taylor wasn't a healthy eater, which prompted Walters to ask,
"You wouldn't care if you got fat?"
I am fat.
Now.
God, yeah.
I didn't want to
I can hardly
say
get into any of my clothes.
Walters then repeated her question, to which Taylor sighed and answered, "Not really." Several years later, Taylor wrote a book about her experience with gaining weight and dieting called Elizabeth Takes Off, which includes the sentence, "I was almost 50 when for the first time in my life I lost my sense of self-worth." Even though Taylor claimed to be happy during the 1977 interview, in another chat with Walters 10 years later, she admitted that all the talk about her weight during that time was hard. As she put it, "I hated it, and I hated all the fat jokes."
I probably laughed as louder than anyone. But they hurt. They hurt me a lot.
In her 2006 special, 30 Mistakes in 30 Years, Barbara Walters claimed that she'd made a new rule for herself after her Ricky Martin interview.
Unless someone is openly gay and happy to talk about it, it's nobody's business, including mine.
But in 2014, she didn't exactly stick to that plan. That was when she included comedian Chelsea Handler on her list of the 10 most fascinating people of the year. Handler has been open about her sexual life during her career, so it only made sense that the topic would come up during the interview. Handler agreed that she was promiscuous, which prompted Walters to ask what she meant by that.
I like men. I don't know.
I like men, but I don't think I'm promiscuous.
Walters then asked Handler if she would ever have a relationship with another woman, with Handler responding that she's not a lesbian. She clearly felt awkward as she then joked.
You have said...
That's code for I am.
Handler ultimately put the question to rest as she stated a little more definitively.
No, I'm not. I wish I
Okay.
was. I would help you. I would try and make this interview even more exciting.
that would help.
Who would Barbra Streisand be without her signature schnoz? In 1994, the Los Angeles Times hailed the iconic singer as a nose revolutionary, a nose nationalist and liberator, a prophet who saw the pert, snub, freckled, upturned, tidy, tiny, cute, all-American cheerleader popularity of the ideal nose personified by Doris Day back in the 1950s, and she bloodied it. Indeed, Babs deserves all the praise for making people see that an ostensibly unconventional nose can be an asset in making you unforgettable. By the time she was interviewed by Barbara Walters in 1985, she was already so famous that you'd think any questions about her nose were a thing of the past. But that wasn't how Walters saw it, as she asked what surely many interviewers had asked before.
Why didn't you have your nose fixed? Everybody must have said to you, have your nose fixed. How did you know it was going to be right?
Streisand could have been offended by the implication that there was something wrong with her face, but instead she calmly responded.
I like the bump. I thought my nose went with my face. It's all a little odd.
Women are stereotypically more likely to be subjected to body shaming, but men aren't entirely immune. In 2011, then New Jersey Governor Christie was considering a bid for president, and his weight, perhaps unsurprisingly, became part of the discussion of his qualifications. During an episode of The View that year, for example, Joy Behar pointed out, "The last fat president that we had was President Taft. I don't think the country's ready for a fat president again." Barbara Walters then came to his defense as she insisted, "I think that's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with his brain. It has nothing to do with his experience." But that didn't stop her from making a fat joke at Christie's expense a few months later, as Walters included the governor on her 10 Most Fascinating People special in 2012. Even though she said she felt very uncomfortable bringing up the topic, she asked him why he was overweight and if he tried to diet, to which he responded,
"Barbara, I've had more diets and lost and gained back more weight in my lifetime than I care to count."
Walters then asked him what he would say about people calling him too heavy to be president, which he called a ridiculous notion. It's probably a good rule of thumb not to ask people about their weight unless they bring it up first. And the same goes if you suspect someone might have an eating disorder, especially if you're on national television. When Canadian singer Celine Dion rose to fame in the 90s, there were rumors that she was anorexic. In February 1999, a month before her interview with Barbara Walters, she was hoping to put those rumors to rest when she told People magazine, "I don't have an eating problem, and there's nothing more I can say about that." But Walters nevertheless brought up the topic as she asked,
Do you watch what you eat?
No, I do not.
So this is just that you're naturally thin, or why are you so thin?
to which Dion calmly responded, "I'm naturally thin. I eat whatever I want."
And I don't have any weight problem yet.
In 1991, Walter sat down with iconic singer-actor Bette Midler. That same year, Geraldo Rivera had published an autobiography in which he claimed that he'd had an affair with Midler. Naturally, Walters asked her about it. Midler claimed that she didn't remember what Rivera was talking about, but that she did remember the first time she met him. She hesitated to tell the full story at first, though.
No, I'd better not. I'm gonna get in trouble.
Walters, however, encouraged her to spill the details, and Midler then proceeded to recount. Geraldo and his producer came to do an interview with me in the 70s. He and his producer left the crew in the other room. They pushed me into my bathroom. They broke 2 poppers and pushed them under my nose and proceeded to grope me.
I did not offer myself up on the altar of Geraldo Rivera. He was unseemly.
Walters didn't exactly attempt to have a serious discussion about this accusation, as she instead laughed it off. and said, "Well, let's go on to other things, shall we?" In 2017, Midler posted this moment from the interview on Twitter and wrote, "I feel like this video was a gift from the universe to me. Geraldo may have apologized for his tweet supporting Matt Lauer, but he has yet to apologize for this." Heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson had a notoriously tumultuous marriage with actor Robin Givens. During an interview on 2020 with Barbara Walters in 1988, Walters asked Givens if Tyson ever hit her, and she hesitated for a moment before admitting, "He shakes, he pushes, he swings."
Sometimes I think he's trying to scare me.
Tyson sat in silence next to Givens during the interview, but afterwards he reportedly became enraged and threw a chair. Givens filed for divorce just 1 month later. And many speculated that the interview played a part. During a 2010 episode of The View, Walters asked Tyson, "Do you think that I helped to break up your marriage, or would it have broken up anyway?" Tyson assured her that she wasn't to blame. While the original question was a tricky one, it was perhaps ultimately a good thing, if it empowered Givens to walk away from an abusive relationship. So we'll give her the benefit of the doubt this time. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE 4673.